So, you know how in some countries you pay your taxes and things just work? The lights stay on, water comes out of the tap, the potholes get filled. It's a beautiful, simple contract between the people and the government. But here in South Africa, sometimes it feels like that contract was written on disappearing ink. You pay, and then you pray. You pray the lights don't go out during your favorite show. You pray the water doesn't get cut off mid-shower. You pray the pothole on your street doesn't swallow your car whole. And why? Well, a big part of that answer, my friends, is corruption. It's the ghost in the machine, the secret ingredient that makes everything taste a little bit broken. Today we're not just going to complain about it, no. We're going to get specific. We're counting down the top 10 most corrupt municipal services in South Africa. We're going to look at the systems that are supposed to serve us but often end up serving a select few. This isn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet or politicians in fancy suits. This is about the real-world impact on everyday people. It's about the grandmother waiting for a house, the student trying to study by candlelight, and the small business owner who can't get a permit without slipping someone a little jotjo. It's the invisible tax that everyone pays, but no one agreed to. So buckle up. It might get a little bumpy. Much like our roads, actually. We're going to dive deep into the murky waters of municipal mismanagement. We'll explore how these systems are supposed to work and where they go so spectacularly wrong. The goal here isn't to make you despair, but to arm you with knowledge. Because understanding the problem is the first step to fixing it. And trust me, after this, you'll look at your local municipality in a whole new light. Assuming, of course, that the lights are on. Let's get into it. Kicking off our list at number 10 is something you'd think would be pretty straightforward. Water. H2O. The stuff of life. In a functional system, you turn on a tap and it flows. Simple. But here, getting water to your home can feel like a complex international negotiation. Corruption in our water supply services turns a basic human right into a commodity. Something to be bought and sold, not by the municipality, but by the people working within it. It's a system that's sprung more leaks than the Titanic, and I'm not just talking about the pipes. We're talking about tenderpreneurs who get massive contracts to build or maintain water infrastructure. They quote astronomical prices, use cheap materials that crumble faster than a Marie biscuit in tea, and then, the whole thing needs to be fixed again a year later. It's a beautiful business model if you have no soul. The money that was meant for new reservoirs, for replacing ancient bursting pipes, or for water treatment plants, vanishes into a network of kickbacks and dodgy deals. The result? Entire communities go without water for days, sometimes weeks. And it's not just about the big money deals at the top, it seeps all the way down to the ground level. Imagine your water gets cut off, not because of a drought, but because of a billing issue. You go to the municipal office, and you're met with a shrug. But then, a guy who knows a guy whispers that for a small cool drink fee, your water can be magically reconnected, no questions asked. This isn't a hypothetical, it's a Tuesday for thousands of South Africans. It's a system where people are forced to pay bribes just to get the service they're already paying for through their taxes and utility bills. This creates a two-tier system. Those who can afford the fee get water, and those who can't, well, they have to rely on tankers that may or may not show up, or walk miles to a communal tap. It's a crisis that disproportionately affects the poor and the vulnerable. And the irony is staggering. We live in a water-scarce country, where every drop is precious. You'd think we'd guard it like gold. Instead, the system in charge of it is often more interested in the gold that lines their own pockets. So, while officials give speeches about water conservation, the very infrastructure they're meant to protect is being eroded from within. It's a slow-motion disaster, a constant drip, drip, drip of funds being siphoned away, leaving citizens high and dry. This isn't just mismanagement, it's a fundamental betrayal of public trust. When you can't even guarantee people water, what exactly is the point of the service? It's a question many are asking, often while standing next to an empty bucket. Coming in at number 9, we have a topic that unites every South African in a shared, traumatic experience. Electricity, or more accurately, the lack thereof. Yes, we're talking about the institution that gave us the national pastime of guess when the power comes back on. But beyond the scheduled darkness of load shedding, there's a whole other layer of corruption that keeps the system flickering and failing. It's a world of illegal connections, ghost vendors, and meters that spin faster than a politician's promises. Let's start with the basics, getting connected. For many, especially in informal settlements, the official process is a bureaucratic nightmare. It's slow, it's expensive, and it's confusing. So, what happens? An enterprising and completely illegal electrician shows up. For a fee, he'll run a spiderweb of exposed wires from a lamppost or a neighbor's box straight to your home. It's incredibly dangerous. It overloads the grid, causing more outages, and it's a thriving black market that the municipality often seems powerless or unwilling to stop. Why? Because sometimes the people meant to be stopping it are the ones taking a cut. Then you have the issue of repairs and maintenance. A transformer blows in your neighborhood, you log a call, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait some more. But then, word gets around. If the whole street pools some money together for the repair team, they might just show up a lot faster. Suddenly, a 2-week job becomes a 2-hour job. It's corruption as a service delivery accelerator. You're essentially paying a ransom to get your own lights turned back on. It's infuriating, but when your food is spoiling in the fridge, people feel they have no other choice. And what about the money that's supposed to be used to upgrade our ancient collapsing grid? That's where the tender fraud comes in on a grand scale. Contracts for new power stations, for coal supply, for basic maintenance equipment are inflated to insane levels. Companies with no experience but the right political connections are awarded billion-rand deals. They supply substandard parts, do shoddy work, and the grid remains fragile. Every rand stolen is another minute we sit in the dark, another blow to our economy, another reason businesses can't operate. This whole ecosystem of graft ensures that even when we do have power, we're paying more for it. The cost of all this theft and inefficiency is passed directly onto the consumer through tariff hikes. So you're paying more for a service that is less reliable, all to cover the costs of the corruption that's making it unreliable in the first place. It's a vicious cycle. It's the reason why, in South Africa, a candlelight dinner is less about romance and more about the fact that you have no other choice. Electricity should be about empowerment, but here it's often just another power play. Alright, at number 8, we're getting into the dirty stuff, literally. Waste management, garbage collection. It seems so simple, right? A truck comes, it picks up your bin, it drives away. What could possibly go wrong? Well, in the world of municipal services, the answer is a lot. The stench of corruption in waste management is often stronger than the stench from the uncollected rubbish itself. It's a field ripe for the picking, with dodgy contracts and ghost employees making a mint off our mess. The biggest game in town is tender fraud. A municipality needs to hire a company to collect refuse for a few suburbs. Instead of a fair, open bidding process, the contract is quietly awarded to Jabulani's Cousins Cleaning Services, a company that was registered last Tuesday and owns one bakkie with 3 wheels. The contract value is, of course, 5 times the market rate. The company then either does a terrible job, or they don't do the job at all. But they keep getting paid. The rubbish piles up on the streets, posing health risks and turning neighborhoods into dump sites. This isn't just about the collection trucks. Think about the landfills, the dump sites where all this waste is supposed to go. Managing these sites is a massive and expensive undertaking. It requires engineering, environmental controls, and constant oversight. This is a goldmine for corrupt officials. They'll sign off on contracts for landfill management with companies that cut every corner imaginable. They don't follow environmental regulations, leading to contaminated groundwater and toxic fumes. The money meant for safe disposal disappears, and communities living near these sites pay the price with their health. Then you have the more subtle, everyday graft. Sometimes the trucks just don't come. Why? Maybe the fleet hasn't been maintained because the maintenance budget was looted, or maybe the drivers are using the municipal truck and its fuel to run their own private rubble removal business on the side. So while you're waiting for your bin to be emptied, the truck you're paying for is off making someone else a private profit. It's a classic case of public assets being used for personal enrichment. And let's not forget the ghost employees. A payroll for a municipal cleaning department might list 200 street sweepers. In reality, only 100 actually exist. The other 100 are ghosts, names on a list whose salaries are collected by a syndicate of corrupt managers. This happens across the board, bloating the wage bill and ensuring there's less money for actual services, like buying new trucks or, paying actual people to clean the streets. It's a system where the garbage piles up on the curb, while the cash piles up in offshore accounts. At number 7, we're tackling an issue that is deeply emotional and speaks to the very promises of our democracy housing. Specifically the allocation of RDP houses That's the Reconstruction and Development Program, homes meant to provide shelter for the country's poorest citizens. For millions, getting one of these houses is the dream. It's a chance at dignity, security, and a place to call your own. But for many, that dream is being turned into a nightmare by corruption that preys on the most desperate. The system is supposed to work based on a waiting list. You register, you meet the criteria, and you wait your turn. It can take years, even decades. But what happens when someone with a bit of cash can just jump the queue? This is the most common and honestly cruelest form of corruption in housing. A municipal official with access to the list will approach someone and say, "For a few thousand rand, I can make sure your name is at the top of the list for the next project." People who have been waiting patiently for 20 years are suddenly leapfrogged by someone who paid a bribe. It's a market built on desperation. These officials know that people will scrape together their last cents, borrow from loan sharks, and do whatever it takes to secure a home for their family. They are exploiting the poor to enrich themselves, and it gets worse. Sometimes the houses are illegally sold off to people who don't even qualify for an RDP house. People who have other properties or higher incomes. The house that was meant for a destitute grandmother ends up being rented out by a local businessman as an investment property. Then there's the construction phase itself. Just like with water and roads, housing projects are a magnet for tender fraud. A connected contractor gets the job to build 100 houses. They use shoddy materials, weak cement, thin walls, leaky roofs. The houses are barely habitable from day one. They start cracking and falling apart within a few years. The money that was allocated for quality homes has been siphoned off, and the poor are left with crumbling, dangerous structures. The dream of a solid, safe home becomes a collapsing liability. The entire process, from the waiting list to the handover of the keys, is vulnerable. There are stories of completed houses standing empty for months or years while officials fight over who gets to allocate them and who gets the kickbacks from that allocation. It's a complete betrayal of the program's intent. RDP was meant to redress the injustices of the past, to give people a foothold in the economy. Instead, in too many places, it has become just another tool for corrupt individuals to exploit the very people it was designed to help. Driving into our number 6 spot is something every single South African who has ever been in a car, bus, or taxi can complain about: road maintenance, or the spectacular lack thereof. Our roads are becoming less like transport infrastructure and more like an extreme off-roading experience, and while we're all swerving to avoid the craters that could swallow a small child, a different kind of driving is happening behind the scenes, the driving of public funds into private pockets. This is the pothole economy. The main vehicle for this corruption once again is the tender process. A municipality needs a 5-kilometer stretch of road resurfaced. The budget is, let's say, 10 million rand. A legitimate company might bid 9 million, but Sifo's Smooth Rides, a company with deep political connections, bids 15 million rand and miraculously wins the contract. They then do the work using the cheapest tar, the thinnest layer, and the least amount of effort possible. The road looks good for about 3 weeks until the first heavy rain. Then the potholes reappear, bigger and angrier than before. And guess what? The municipality now needs to issue a new contract to repair the potholes on the brand new road. And who do you think is first in line for that contract? It's a self-perpetuating cycle of profit. The worse the quality of the work, the more work there is to be done in the future. There is a financial incentive to do a bad job. It's a business model that thrives on failure, and the taxpayer foots the bill every single time. This isn't just about the big resurfacing projects, it's about the small stuff too. The team that comes out to patch a single pothole. The materials they use are often substandard, bought from a supplier who is giving the manager a kickback. The patch lasts for a month before it disintegrates, and the whole process starts again. Meanwhile, the damage to our vehicles is immense. Tires, rims, suspensions. The cost of navigating these municipal minefields is passed directly onto us, the drivers. It's an indirect tax levied by incompetence and greed. And think about the knock-on effects. Poor roads lead to more accidents. They slow down commerce, making it harder for goods to get to market. They isolate rural communities. They damage our tourism brand when visitors have to navigate obstacle courses to get to our beautiful landmarks. This isn't just an inconvenience, it's a massive economic drain. Every pothole is a symbol of money that was meant for the public good but ended up somewhere else. It's a hole in our road and a hole in our national budget. Halfway through our list at number 5, we arrive at a place of universal dread and despair, the licensing department. This is the kingdom of long queues, mysterious system offline signs, and a level of bureaucratic frustration that could test a saint. And in this environment of desperation and delay, corruption flourishes like mold in a damp basement. If you want a license or a permit, there's the official way, which takes forever, and then there's the other way, which is much faster but comes at a price. The classic example is the driver's license. You've failed your test a couple of times, you're getting desperate. A friendly official might sidle up and suggest that for a certain guarantee fee, your next test could be a guaranteed pass. You'll get behind the wheel, drive around the block, and the examiner will tick all the boxes regardless of how many curbs you hit. The result? Unqualified and dangerous drivers are legally put on our already dangerous roads. Every bribe paid for a license potentially puts everyone's life at risk. But it's not just about drivers. Think about vehicle roadworthy certificates. Your backy is a death trap. The brakes are gone, the tires are bald, the chassis is rusted. It would never pass a legitimate inspection, but for a bribe, you can get a certificate that says it's in perfect condition. That unroadworthy vehicle is then back on the highway, a ticking time bomb. The officials taking these bribes are trading public safety for a few $100,000. The corruption extends to every piece of paper these departments issue. Business licenses, liquor licenses, trading permits. The official process is often deliberately slow and complicated, creating the very problem that the bribe is meant to solve. It creates a bottleneck, and the officials controlling that bottleneck can charge a toll. For small business owners, this can be crippling. They can't operate legally without the permit, and they can't afford the bribe to get it. It stifles entrepreneurship and keeps people trapped in the informal and often illegal economy. And let's not forget the runners and the middlemen who hang around these departments. They act as agents, streamlining the process for a fee. They have inside contacts who they pay a portion of their earnings to. They've turned a public service into a for-profit enterprise. The entire ecosystem is designed to frustrate you into paying for a shortcut. It's a perfect illustration of how corruption isn't just about theft. It's about the deliberate sabotage of a system to create opportunities for illicit gain. Pulling into the number 4 position is a service that millions of South Africans rely on every single day: public transport. Specifically, the regulation and management of bus and taxi services. For many, this is the only way to get to work, to school, to the clinic. It's the lifeblood of our cities. But you know, the veins of this system are often clogged with corruption, leading to unsafe conditions, route wars, and a service that puts profits before people. The heart of the problem lies in the issuing of permits and operating licenses. In the taxi industry, for instance, a license to operate on a specific lucrative route is incredibly valuable. Officially, these are supposed to be allocated based on need and strict criteria. In reality, they are often sold to the highest bidder by corrupt officials. This creates a black market for permits, driving up the cost of entry and putting immense financial pressure on taxi owners. And honestly, this pressure has devastating consequences. To pay off the massive cost of acquiring the route, owners may neglect vehicle maintenance. They run their taxis into the ground, with bald tires and faulty brakes, putting passengers at risk. It also fuels the infamous and violent taxi wars. When routes are not managed fairly and transparently, rival associations will fight, literally, for control of them. The corruption in the permit office spills out onto the streets in the form of bloodshed. The bus services, often subsidized by the municipality, are not immune either. Contracts to operate municipal bus routes are worth hundreds of millions of rand. Unsurprisingly, this attracts the tenderpreneurs. Companies with no experience in transport but with the right connections can win these contracts. They might not have enough buses, or their buses are old and poorly maintained, but they get the contract, and the public is left with a ghost service that is unreliable and unsafe. The subsidy money, meant to make transport affordable, ends up enriching a few well-connected elites. Even the day-to-day operations are affected. Traffic officers, for example, will often turn a blind eye to overloaded taxis or unroadworthy buses in exchange for a small bribe, a cool drink. This routine, low-level corruption normalizes dangerous practices and erodes the rule of law on our roads. It sends a message that safety regulations are optional if you have a 50 Rand note handy. Every time an officer takes that bribe, they are gambling with the lives of the passengers crammed into that vehicle. Public transport should be safe, reliable, and affordable. But corruption ensures that, for many, it is none of those things. Building our way into the top 3, at number 3, we have the critical but often invisible service of building inspections. These are the people who are supposed to ensure that every new mall, office block, or home extension is built safely and according to the national building regulations. They are the guardians of structural integrity, the watchdogs against shoddy workmanship, or at least they're supposed to be. In reality, a well-placed bribe can turn a building inspector from a watchdog into a lapdog. Here's how it works. A developer is putting up a new apartment complex. To save money, they decide to use a weaker grade of concrete, less steel rebar than the plans require, and ignore certain fire safety regulations. They are cutting corners to maximize their profit. When the municipal building inspector comes to the site, he's supposed to spot these violations and shut the project down until they are fixed. This is a crucial safety check. But the developer knows the game. Before the inspection, he makes a call. A meeting is arranged. An envelope full of cash is handed over. And suddenly, the inspector develops a case of temporary blindness. He walks through the site, ticks all the boxes on his clipboard, and signs off on the construction stage. The developer saves a fortune, the inspector gets a new TV, and the people who will eventually live or work in that building are unknowingly put at risk. They are living in a house of cards, certified safe by a corrupt official. This happens at every scale. It happens with massive commercial developments. And it happens with a homeowner who wants to build an extra room without getting proper plans approved. They want to save on the architect's fees and the submission process. A small gift to the inspector ensures he looks the other way when he drives past. The illegal structure goes up, potentially destabilizing the original house or encroaching on a neighbor's property. But because it was never officially approved, there's no accountability when things go wrong. The consequences of this can be catastrophic. We've seen buildings collapse, injuring or killing people. We've seen fires rage through structures that had inadequate fire escapes. Every one of these tragedies is a potential endpoint of a journey that started with a bribe. It undermines the entire regulatory system, which is there for the sole purpose of protecting the public. It creates a city where the building code is not a rule, but merely a suggestion that can be ignored for the right price. The scariest part is that this type of corruption is largely invisible until it's too late. You can't see the substandard steel inside a concrete column. You don't know that the foundations are too shallow. You trust the certificate on the wall that says the building is safe. But that certificate might be a testament not to safety, but to the power of a bribe to overwrite engineering and common sense. It's a terrifying thought that the very ground beneath your feet might have been compromised by greed. The runner-up spot for the most corrupt municipal service, our number 2, is the big one, the parent of almost all the other corruption we've talked about. It's the procurement department. This is the engine room of municipal spending. Every single thing a municipality buys, from paper clips and toilet paper to fleets of vehicles and multi-million rand IT systems, goes through this department. And because it controls all the money, it is the absolute epicenter of fraud, kickbacks, and tender rigging. Procurement is where the real money is made. The process is called supply chain management, which sounds very professional, but is often just a fancy term for a system of organized theft. A manager needs to buy 100 new laptops for the office. The market price is 10,000 rand each. But the manager doesn't go to the market. He goes to his friend's company, which submits a quote for 30,000 per laptop. The quote is approved, the municipality pays 3 times the price, and the manager gets a fat kickback from his friend. Now, multiply that by everything a municipality buys: inflated prices for cleaning supplies, contracts for catering at training workshops that never happen, paying for consulting services that produce a one-page report copied from Wikipedia. It is a relentless, systematic looting of the public purse. The people who are supposed to be getting the best value for the taxpayers' money are actively doing the opposite. They are finding the worst value possible, because the difference is their profit. This is the world of tender fraud, and it has its own language. There's cover quoting, where complicit companies submit fake, non-competitive bids to make the preferred bidder look legitimate. There are specifications written so narrowly that only one specific, pre-selected company can possibly qualify. There are bid evaluation committees stacked with people who have been paid off to score a certain way. It's a rigged game from start to finish. The impact of this is devastating. It means there's less money for everything else. The reason the pothole doesn't get fixed, the reason the clinic is out of medicine, the reason the library can't buy new books, is often because the budget has been eaten alive by corrupt procurement. Essential services are starved of funds so that officials and their cronies can go on a shopping spree with public money. It's not just theft, it's the active sabotage of service delivery. And it poisons the well for legitimate businesses. If you're an honest entrepreneur who wants to do business with the municipality, you often stand no chance. You can't compete with the rigged prices and the kickback system. It creates a business environment where the most corrupt, not the most competent, are the ones who succeed. This is the rot at the core, the system that enables so much of the decay we see on the surface. And here we are, the #1 most corrupt municipal service in South Africa. It's not as visible as a pothole or a pile of rubbish, but its impact is arguably the most profound and permanent. At number 1, it's land use and zoning. This is the department that decides what can be built where. It determines the very shape and character of our towns and cities. And when it's corrupted, it means the city itself is for sale to the highest bidder. Zoning laws exist for a reason. They separate industrial areas from residential ones, they protect green spaces and heritage sites, and they ensure that development is orderly and sustainable. A piece of land zoned for agricultural use is worth far less than the same piece of land zoned for a high-density shopping mall. The power to change that zoning, to rezone land, is the power to create millions, even billions of rand in value out of thin air. And that power is a corrupt official's dream. Here's the playbook. A property developer identifies a piece of protected greenbelt land on the edge of the city. It's zoned for conservation, so it's cheap. He buys it. Then he persuades the officials on the municipal planning committee to rezone it for commercial development. This persuasion usually involves large, untraceable payments. The committee approves the rezoning, citing some nonsense about economic development. The developer's cheap piece of land is now worth 100 times what he paid for it. He builds his mall, and the city loses a vital green lung forever. This kind of corruption has permanent consequences. Once a park is paved over, you can't get it back. It also leads to illogical and chaotic city planning. You'll see a massive new development approved in an area that has no water, sewage, or road capacity to support it, because the developer paid a bribe to bypass all those pesky infrastructure reports. The result is traffic gridlock, bursting sewers, and water shortages for the whole surrounding area. The private developer makes his profit, and the public is left to deal with the consequences for decades to come. It also includes illegal land grabs, sometimes facilitated by corrupt officials who will lose the ownership documents of municipal land, allowing politically connected individuals or groups to occupy and claim it. They manipulate the system from the inside, creating chaos that they can then profit from. This undermines property rights and the rule of law, creating instability and conflict. When you can buy or steal the land itself, you are corrupting the very foundation on which society is built. This is why it takes our #1 spot. It's not just stealing money or resources, it's selling the future of our cities. So there you have it. 10 windows into a system that is creaking under the weight of corruption. From the water in our taps to the land beneath our feet, the services that are meant to build our communities are too often being used to break them down for personal profit. It's easy to feel overwhelmed, to feel like the problem is too big, too entrenched, and that we are powerless to stop it. And that feeling of despair is exactly what corruption thrives on. It wants you to believe that this is just how things are. But it doesn't have to be. The antidote to this decay is transparency and accountability. Corruption loves darkness. It happens in back rooms, in whispered conversations, and in hidden bank accounts. The more we can shine a light on these processes, the harder it is for the corrupt to operate. Demanding open tender processes, public access to municipal spending, and clear consequences for those who are caught is not just wishful thinking. It is the fundamental duty of an active citizenry. We have to hold our elected officials and public servants to account, not just on election day, but every day. They work for us, not the other way around. And that brings us to the most important point, you. If you see something, you have to say something. There are organizations and hotlines dedicated to fighting corruption, like Corruption Watch in South Africa. Report it, anonymously, if you have to. Every single report, every piece of information, adds to a larger picture and can provide the evidence needed to launch an investigation. It might feel like a small act, but when thousands of people do it, it becomes a powerful force for change. We cannot afford to be bystanders while our country's future is being sold off, piece by piece. The fight starts with us. Thanks for watching.